from now until eternity. And if you ever have to, if anybody has to miss a class, it's really no big deal because you can just refer to it again the next day. All right. So that's great. So now, before we kind of carry on with the next part of learning about the fiddle and the best way to approach playing it when you're a beginner, is there any questions or problems with the stuff that we did last week?
I have I have a question about the tuning that I sent you an email about
Yes,
because
that's
I
right.
changed my
Oh,
strings,
there you
which
are.
probably wasn't a good idea, but they've never been changed. So I figured why not do it all at once? And I can't seem to use this tuner. Well, I guess I have questions about the tuner because I can't seem to get it no matter how hard I've tried. I can't get them on the notes that they're supposed to be.
Okay.
I
There's a
can't
couple
get
of things about that. So you've just put strings on your fiddle. Now, have you ever put strings on your fiddle before?
no.
It's difficult. It's tricky. It's
Yes.
not easy. It's not a lot. I remember when I used to work at the music store, people would think, as people that played guitar and started to play fiddle would kind of think, oh, I'm going to slap a new set of strings on her. No big deal, and they buy the strings and they slap them on there the same way you would a guitar. And they have all kinds of problems. The first and foremost problem, and I don't know if this happened to you or not, but they take all four strings off and then the bridge goes clunk like that, and then you're looking at the fiddle going, I think it goes somewhere around here, which is a big danger. So you didn't do that?
No, I watched a video on YouTube to make sure that I kind of had an idea because I am a guitar player and I know you can just whip them all off and it's okay.
Yeah.
But anyway I watched it and that's what she said, one at a time,
Yeah.
and I did okay, but I just can't seem to I tighten it
Now the other thing,
or
the other
loosen it. I don't know how to
consideration.
get it right on the note.
Sure. Now the other consideration is how do your when you put strings on your fiddle, right? You wind the string around the peg, right? You do one on one side of the hole and then all the rest on the other side of the hole, trying to make your way over to where the string actually kind of goes over the nut. See that? Because they used to say that you want the string to make a straight line all the way to your peg if possible. The G and the E you can't really do that, but the A and the D you can, if possible, make a straight line. Because if your string is drastically kind of angled after the nut, then it pulls on the peg. It pulls the peg out or it pulls it in, and it can screw with your tuning. Okay? Now, assuming you've done that right, assuming you've got the strings wound on there, and this is what it looks like. I don't know if you guys can kind of see. This is a properly done. You see how they're side by each? The windings, no overlapping or weird knot looking things or anything like that. Nicely side by each, wrapped around the peg. So that's the proper way to do it. Now, if you do it that way, then you should be able to get to the next step of getting your fiddle in tune. Okay? So the next step after that, first of all, you got to remember the order of operations. When you put new strings on your fiddle, they drop pitch like you wouldn't believe for the first little while, depending on the type of strings you use and how much you play. All right? So what kind of strings did you use?
I just bought these Asante.
Can I see the
Um,
package? I'm terrible with names.
Sorry.
And what's the brand? Is that D'Addario?
Um, yeah, yeah.
D'Addario. So okay, so that's probably a good reliable string. They're all slightly different, but there's a whole bunch in the mid range that are nice and reliable and not going to give you problems. So most of the strings in that range, they take about 3 or 4 or 5 days to settle in. Okay, so and you wouldn't believe how much it can change right there in front of you while you're trying to tune it.
I can believe that.
Yeah, and
Over
it's
believe that.
again same as and it's another distinguishing thing between that and putting strings on a guitar, because with a guitar you do a couple of tugs and the string is settled in and you're good to go. With the fiddle it takes a lot of time. For these strings that I use, which are called Il Canon, you can see the kind of the winding there, the yellow and black winding. Uh, they're pretty expensive. They're about $130 for a set, and they're very loose, and that's what gives me lots of sound out of them, because the strings are loose and can vibrate wide, give me lots of vibration, right? But they take a good week or a week and a half to settle in.
Okay.
So if I have a big gig, for instance, I would never change my strings the day before the big gig or even a week before. I would want to make sure they're totally settled before I start the gig because they just don't stay in tune. Even this one here, I've been shocked because I put new strings on it about a month ago, and because I'm not playing any gigs, it's still dropping on me. Still. It's getting a little annoying, I have to say. So the other night, I actually just played some tunes just to try to get these strings to finally settle in, you know? So when you first put them on, that can be very confusing. You bring it up, you play it almost while you're plucking it. It drops back down. You bring it up, it drops back down, and that's what's going on. Now, you probably had fine tuners, okay? Avoid using your fine tuners to tune your fiddle until your strings have settled in.
Okay.
Use the pegs, all right? And then use the old-fashioned fine tuners, okay? Old-fashioned fine tuners are like this. When you're a little bit sharp, so you crank your string up and you look at your tuner, it's like, oh, that's sharp, but I don't really want to crank it back down with the peg because it's probably just going to go too low, you know? And so what you do is you take the string and you give it a good tug. And that brings it down a little bit. And it can be a really good fine tuner if you get the hang of it, you know? Sometimes it needs a gentle tug. Sometimes it needs a good tug. And I learned this from my friends that are classical violinists because none of them have fine tuners. They only have a fine tuner on their E. That's it.
Okay.
So that's how they do it, and it's very effective for them. So if you're too sharp, you tug on that string. And if you're too flat and you need to raise yourself just slightly, then you push on the string up here past the nut. See that? You push on it down into the peg box, and that raises it up a tiny little bit. And it can also be a very effective fine tuner. And it also helps settle your strings in because you're tugging on them a little bit and stretching on them a little bit, and it makes it accelerate the process. You see what I mean? Now, so that's how you do it. Now let's see how you did, Cindy. Just pluck your A string for me.
My A string?
Yeah. So you got that tuned to the lower octave
of A.
Yes.
Right? Like yes. Okay.
So you got to.
That's when I couldn't figure out this thing because, and maybe it's just the strings bouncing up and down as you say. I couldn't get it to an A4. Like the little number below the A is supposed to be A3, A4, right?
Yeah, and you're playing an A3 right now. So
yes,
now
right.
the intimidating thing also about fiddles when you put strings on a fiddle is you're cranking it and you're like, oh God. And like, so you're at A3 right now and you're probably like, oh, and you got a whole octave to go.
Yeah. Yeah,
so really just crank it. Just crank it. They're a lot more resilient than you think. Just crank her right up there.
Okay, because she warned me when I watched the video. She's like, "Don't pull it too tight because you'll break your string." And I'm like, "Oh God."
Yeah, I mean, I've never. Okay. I gotta say that I've never broken a string that way. Like maybe once with a cheap string, but you would have to do it really, really tight to break the string. And even when I did break it, it was the E string that I broke. So it was the really, really thin one, right? So don't worry too much about that. Crank it up to the right octave while I'm yakking and talking to everybody about how to play the fiddle, and do it with each of your strings. Crank it up to the proper octave, and even if you go a bit sharp, you know, my trick for getting my strings to settle in quickly is I put them on and I tune them all like a half step sharp, and then overnight they drop down and it accelerates the process a little bit. Okay,
as you're talking, I did that, and so I went from A3 to now it's saying it's a C on this tuner, and that's what I was getting really confused. Is like I touch it just a bit and it goes from an A to a D or an A to an E, and then I back it off again, and then it's like starting all over every time.
Well, the pegs are a very, very rough way of tuning. Like it's you know, and it depends on your pegs. Like mine work good. Mine's a $20,000 German violin, and so my pegs work nicely. They're smooth and nice. Most people's are not.
No,
most people's that goes ka-chunk, 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 you know, and it can raise you up like, I don't know, a semitone without you even noticing it, see? So
Okay.
what you want to do is now you're up to a C, okay? So that means that you're half the way there. Okay? Crank it up some more. You got 2 more tones to go there. You're close. Now, which string are you plucking there?
I'm plucking the A, but it's now reading a D.
Yeah. So you got a ways to go.
Tightened it.
You got a ways to go.
I know, and I tightened it. It just seems to bounce all over. And I don't know why. Like it was exactly like you said, it was an F, and you said just a little bit to go, and I went like that, and it went back down to a D.
No, it's you shouldn't say down because it went up again. It's just it's just another D. That's the confusing thing.
Okay.
Okay.
I get it.
So
we're moving up.
That's right. We're trying to move up. So you're tightening the string. So tighten it a little more and see if you can mess around with it until you get it to A, and then we'll check back in. Okay? Now, did everybody get that about getting your strings on it? It can be very tricky. I always recommend that if you're going to get your strings replaced, at least the first time, take it to a luthier, like Heinl or the Sound Post or anywhere, Halifax Folklore Center for you, Sherry. And they'll do it for you. And then you can look at it and you can see exactly how to do it for yourself and make sure you do it right. Okay? Now, you keep fighting with that, Cindy, as we move on. If you're having trouble, then just check in because all these guys can learn from what you're trying to do right now.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay? Yeah. Alrighty. So that's how to put strings on your fiddle. It's very difficult and I don't recommend it. But if you're going to do it, that's how. Okay, so last time we talked about holding the fiddle. Is everybody doing good with that? Can I see everybody slap your fiddle up on your shoulder for me? Okay, everybody's looking really good. Now, I'm going to pick on people because if I don't complain, I'm not doing my job. So let's see. Joanne, you actually look really, really good there. That looks great. Can you move your hand up and back down without any problem there? Oh, yeah. Okay, that looks really good. So I don't have anything to complain about at all. Katya, you look great too. Do you feel your shoulder coming up at all? Sorry, you're muted.
Yeah. It feels good. It feels comfortable.
That's great. And your shoulder's not going like this?
Not
Perfect. That's great. Sherry, you look really good too. I'm wondering about your shoulder. Is it up a little bit in the air?
It doesn't feel like it, no.
Oh, good. Okay, it's just the angle. I just wanted to make sure. That looks really good. Nicely parallel with a good angle. Cindy, you look really good too. Now, the only thing is your fiddle looks a little bit like this. Okay? Oh, you're muted. Yeah. So if your fiddle looks a little bit like this, it's usually just because your shoulder rest might be a little bit too far out from the fiddle. It's just kind of picking up on it a little bit too much. See that? So you can play around with that a little bit, but it does look good. It looks good other than that. Okay? How about you, Elaine? Looking great. That's looking really good. And your shoulder feels comfy and low?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's great. How about Lena? You look great too. Now, is your fiddle, does it have a little bit of an up angle too, or is it just the way I'm looking at it with your camera? No, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Does it feel comfortable or does it feel spring loaded? Boinga, boinga, boinga. A little bit.
It feels pretty comfortable though.
Yeah, that's good.
I still have a little bit of an issue. Like it does the way that the chin rest is, it digs in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to look down a little, like down the fiddle.
Yeah.
More than like tilting my head.
Okay.
But it's like this, and it's comfortable.
Yeah, that looks really good. And you are like you're not really supposed to kind of look like you're supposed to look down at the scroll.
Okay.
Yeah, that's step. I think that's step 2. Look down at the scroll, because then the corner of your jaw, just like you got there, goes in and it's nice. Now,
Yeah.
if you're still having a problem with your chin rest, there are covers that you can get for them.
Okay.
Little slips that go. My dad had one, and his inflated, which is kind of cool.
Oh.
But yeah, and that because a lot of people have that sensitivity, and so the
Yeah.
classical guys I know, they have a cloth. They put it right over the whole thing there.
That might be good. I'll look into those.
Investigate. Now, let's see you, Nancy. Let's see you hold your fiddle. Oh, that looks great. That looks really good. Does it feel comfy?
Yeah, it's feeling more comfortable all the time.
Oh, that's great. Exactly right. And Sharon, how are you doing with holding that old fiddle?
Okay. My G string popped, so that's why I'm fiddling with it right now.
It popped?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did it actually break or did it just slip
No,
out?
it didn't. That's the funny thing. It didn't break.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well,
it's been a while since I used it. Anyway, but I can.
Oh, that looks really good. That looks really good. Now, you could just hook that back into your fine tuner there and tighten her up. Yeah. Good luck. Now, Bill, let's see you. You're looking really good there. Does it feel comfortable? Do you feel like you have to tense any part of your body?
Well, since last week, I've been changing my shoulder rest around quite a bit. So.
And you getting
I
there?
think I'm making it back further that way, so I'm not that comfortable yet with it because I've been changing it so much.
Yeah, you're still messing around with it. I was telling these guys last time that when I started using a shoulder rest, when I started playing again, I was about 25 or 26. I had to mess around with it for quite a while before it felt comfortable. And even now, it doesn't even really feel that. Like, it's okay. It's much better. But I don't think you really ever get to total comfort. But take your time playing around with it until it feels good. It's worth the time. Okay? How about you, Shona? Now, yours looks a little bit sticking up in the air, too. Do you feel that, or does it feel okay to you?
No, for some reason today, I feel like I'm having to scrunch more than I did before, so maybe I didn't put it on the right way.
Okay, it could be like with the scrunching. It's usually just could be like the angle, this angle here. You can mess with that. Yeah, it's usually that, but you can mess with it.
I think I didn't put it on correctly, but also maybe I need to make it a little higher.
Okay, but keep messing with your shoulder rest until it starts to feel good and easy to mess with. That's the other thing. You don't want to go through this every time you pull your fiddle out. So you want to get it adjusted, memorize how it goes on, so you can just slap it on there and slap her up there, just like that. Okay?
This is too high?
I mean, it looks a little bit like that to me. Okay? If you look at the way...
I missed that. How do I fix that?
It's usually just because the kind of height of the shoulder rest is too big. Usually.
Oh, okay.
Usually. But you got to mess with it. It's really hard to say. The problem with shoulder rests is that every shoulder is different. Every fiddle is also different. So I can guide you, but I can't tell you exactly how to put it on because you really have to find out for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? But keep messing with it because it's worth the time. Now, how are we doing with bow hold? Let's see everybody's bow hold. Excellent there, Joanne. Excellent, Katya. Excellent, Sherry. Very good. Let's see a few more. Shona, Perf, Lena, very good. I like your little, what is that, a corn plaster or something for your pinky? It is. There you go. Excellent. That's a really good idea. How about you, Nancy? How's yours?
I'm on the basics, I think. The basic hold.
That looks really good. It's going to work for sure. Yeah. Going to work for sure. How about you, Elaine? Looking really good. Cindy? That's looking good. You might want to try to hook that finger down a little bit more under the stick if you can. You too, Nancy. Anybody that's trying to, because you guys are doing the beginner hold, but you're also trying to bring your fingers around the bow a little bit, which is fine. So just remember that your eventual goal is to get that finger under the bow, okay? How about you, Sharon? See if you remember. Looking good. Very good. How about you, Bill? Just a little bit higher so I can see it. Oh yeah, that looks really good. And again, you want to try to get the end of that first finger under the bow if possible. That's great. Very good. And
Like I tried to, James puts his way up here. He does it way up here.
yeah.
And so that's the way I've been doing it. So I'm trying to do it now back there. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or not.
You know, it really depends. Like I'm a kind of an anomaly when it comes to that. When I first start playing, I look like this. Just like you should if you're in the Royal Conservatory. And then within about 3 notes, I get this thing going on. And it's way up here. Like it's usually like way up here. I don't know why. It's the people talk about watching fiddle players and they're holding it up here all the time. Like I remember somebody told me once that they saw Howie McDonald, who's a great fiddle player that played in the Rankin family band. And he's a wicked player. And he has a piece of garden hose that he put on his bow up here because that's where he holds it. Okay? And the only thing I can figure, because I choke up a little bit too, is because fiddlers constantly play in this upper third of the bow. They call it the fiddling sweet spot, right? And so if I choke up a little bit and take my fingers off, I can play there with a lot more kind of mobility. See that? I can really get like a good dotted quarter note without using my arm. And then this here is all about the counterbalance. You know, you just you find the balance point that works for you. So that's what it is about choking up on the bow. That's why people do it, and that's the purpose. Doesn't always mean you should do it, you know. Really depends on you. Just pay attention to what's working there, Bill. It's the best thing to do. Okay? Now, how are we doing with bowing the old strings? Does somebody want to give us some glorious open strings that are going to be awesome? Anyone? All right, Katya's the first victim. Let's hear your open strings, Katya.
Okay. Do I play every open string once or twice?
Let's do a down bow and an up bow on each string, starting on the G string. Really, really good. It was nice and straight, and the sound is great. Does it sound good there?
Yeah, I always have my tuner on now, and the tunables is great. I downloaded it for the first time last week.
That's good.
And it's a world of a difference, honestly.
That's great.
So I really practice that it's always in the green.
Yeah, and you know, even on your open strings you can use it too, eh? Because an unsteady bow makes your open string go out of tune. So you can watch that tuner and you can know if your bow is moving unsteadily just by the tuner reacting. Okay, so that looks really good. I'm going to say one improvement that you can make, which is you do really good up until about here, and then you do this.
Okay.
Okay, so be aware of that. That's a very common problem. All right. Anybody else want to give it a go for us? The best open strings in the world. Sherry's ready to go, I can tell.
Ready? Okay.
Okay, so that's got a lot better there, Sherry. You're moving the bow really nice and straight, and you're getting a decent sound. You're having some trouble touching the other strings, and I can tell you why. It's because you got a little bit of the wandering elbow going on. Okay? When you first started out, your elbow was a little high, and I think I might have mentioned that before. Some people have that tendency, so you want to watch for that because you basically, after you started, you kind of battled that, and that made your elbow wander a little bit, and that makes you touch the other strings, okay? So, doorway for you.
Yes.
Okay? Anybody else want to give it a go? Bill?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, now that's not too bad. The bow's moving straight, but let's go right from the frog to the tip now. Do the same thing, but go right from the frog to the tip. Really good. You hear the difference there? That was good. You got a nice strong sound. One thing I'm watching with you, Bill, with angle, is that you have a little bit of this here going on. Okay, so you want to correct that to be a right angle. Yeah. And people kind of have either one of two tendencies. They either go too far this way or too far this way, you know. I tend to be a this way guy, but so you're a this way guy. So you want to bring that in a little bit and keep it straight. Okay? Okay, that was an example. So your previous is much better. So bring it in a bit. Let's see if we can get it right straight, right angle to the strings. Yeah, a bit better. And you can fix that by just bringing your elbow back a little bit. Okay? That's a bit better there. That's better there. Okay. That's better there. You're starting to move it straight thereafter, okay? And using the mirror is really good for watching that straightness of the bow. Okay? Now, anybody else want to try that for me? And I can critique you and criticize you and make you feel horrible?
I'll go.
Okay, great.
I do have a little question just about that elbow thing.
Yeah.
Is it better to have a chicken wing or a shorter stroke? Because if my especially on the G, if I can't seem to keep my arm all the way to bring it all the way down like a full stroke, like you said, it flies out. So is it better to have a shorter stroke or just to let it come out?
Oh yeah, no, let it come out. You know, I have a kind of a method when it comes to mistakes. You let them happen because then you can learn how to not do them anymore. You know what I mean? So if you have that tendency where you get to about here and it just goes like that, you know, then the doorway is the answer for you as well. Okay? When I'm finished my down bow, my arm is straight out in front of me, okay? And my hand is as far back as it can go. Okay? That's the end of my down bow, looks like that. The end of my up bow looks like this. Okay? And then remember also, you can do this here.
Yeah.
That'll help as well.
Okay.
So this here and the doorway, and you'll get that bow moving straight for the upper third. So let me see you do it anyway. Let's see what the problem is like.
Okay.
Okay, now that's not too bad at all. Actually, that's that problem is not as pronounced as you might think. So it's actually you're doing really good.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? No. How are you doing with your string there, Cindy?
I wouldn't want to torture you with playing it.
Just pluck it for me.
Okay, so there's.
You're very close. Very close.
Yeah. And this is E.
Very
but
close.
It seems very sharp.
No, it's flat.
Oh, it's flat?
Yeah.
And then C.
It's on there.
Okay. And then G, I can't.
It's sharp. It's too sharp. Loosen it off a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Keep at it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, great. So now let's talk about some different bowing exercises that you can do to get more used to the bow. Now, the first thing, like I said before, the best way to start your practice is doing that down and then up on each string. All right. And when you're finished on the E string, turn around and go back to the G string as well. I'm going to demonstrate that exercise now so you have a video of it and so that you know exactly what to do. And again, when you're doing this, your aim is to have a nice sound, no squeaks, no crunches, no touching other strings, no chokey. Okay? So I'm going to show you now. That's it. Just like that. Trying to get the best sound you can get right from one end of the bow to the other. And when you finish going from G towards E and you're finished playing the E string, it's good to go back and go the other way. Because one big difference between going G towards E or E towards G is that when you go from G towards E, you have to put the bow over to the next string with your hand. You have to actually move it over there. Okay? When you're going the other way, the stick wants to fall over there on its own. Okay? So you got to let it go over there. If you put any force behind it, it's too much and you end up overshooting onto the next string. Okay? So you want to, G towards E, you push. E towards G, you let. Okay? You lower it over there. So that's going to be a big thing when you're practicing. You want to pay attention to that. Take that into account so that you get good sounds no matter which way you're going. Now, let's talk about a little expansion of what you can do. So one of the really good things to work on is stopping and starting your bow. How many people here have a hard time getting the note started? A few people, yes. It's usual. So, and that's really, it's because you have to kind of, you put the bow on the string and you kind of get her going. It's kind of like, right? And it usually takes about that much bow or maybe a little bit more to actually get the note started. So practicing starting your notes is really good. Practicing stopping your notes is really good too. Because most people, as soon as the bow stops, they get the TTC breaks. Check this out. You hear that little break there? It's horrible. Especially if you're going back and forth, because then you're basically, every second one is a crunch, you know? Is a little micro squeak. Okay, and they add up and it's just horrible. So stopping your bow cleanly and nicely is important too. So a really good way to practice it is the old Suzuki exercise, which is you start from a dead stop and you play a full down bow, stop at the end, play half an up bow, stop in the middle, and carry on with the rest of the up bow, stop at the end. Okay? Clean and nice. I'm going to do it again. See how I'm doing that? Now, when I'm doing that stop and start is really when you're using these kind of digits here. You're kind of you're working your shock absorbers, okay? Your fingers are the shock absorbers of the bow. So you're moving along and the bow stops and your fingers kind of take that shock. See that? So you stop it and you let that kind of flex a little bit. And then when you get started again, you flex it again. See that? And off you go like a jellyfish. And then you get to the top of that and the same thing, you stop and you take that little shock with your fingers like this. And now you're starting down. See that? And that's how we're going to stop and start the bow. All right? Does somebody want to give it a try and see how they get along? And then we can talk about it. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, Katya, go for it.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Oh, Nancy, or Shona. Shona's going to do it. Okay.
Oh, well, I'll do it.
Okay, that was this. The stop at the end was good. The stop in the middle was good. The stop near the frog is the hardest one.
Yes,
Try it again. Really good. Did you hear the improvement there? Much better, much better. Somebody else. Let's hear somebody else give that a
not
try.
very flexible.
What's that?
I said I feel like my wrist is not very flexible yet.
Here's what you got to do. A spider crawl.
Oh yeah. I remember
Okay,
that now.
remember that? Spider
Yeah.
crawl. It's hard.
Hard.
No cheating. And then once you get that going, bow push-ups. See that? Did I show you bow push-ups?
I don't remember that one.
Okay, let me show everybody. So I showed you guys the spider crawl last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, you showed me. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay, let me tell you. So Shona here is talking about how she has trouble being flexible and kind of dexterous with this hand. And that is the big challenge, right? So a way to get that happening and get that more dexterous and more control is first of all the spider crawl. So I'm going to back up so you can see the whole bow. So the spider crawl is where you kind of spider crawl up the bow, right up to the tip. And this is the easy part, okay? And then once you get there, we're going to crawl back up. And that's the hard part. And if you feel like you're going to drop your bow, go get a cheap bow. Do it with that. Okay? Yeah, I can see some people are starting to be able to do it. Try to avoid putting your pinky on the other side of the bow. I know it's a feeling like you want to do it, but don't do that because that's cheating. So keep all your fingers on one side of the bow. And we go down the bow, easy part, real easy and done. And then up the bow, the slightly harder part. Now check this out. As I'm moving my fingers along, my thumb can move without the bow moving. See that? Because I'm gripping it with just enough, not too much force to do that. And that means that I got a nice nimble bow hold, a nice nimble grip. Okay? So that's the spider crawl. And that's a really, really good way to up your dexterity with your right hand, with your fingers in your hand. The next thing, once you get the hang of that, is bow push-ups. So check it out. I'm holding my bow, and I got my fingers and my thumb extended. See that? Now, I'm going to pick up on that bow. With my thumb and forefinger, I'm going to pick it up like this, up into my palm. I'm going to use my pinky as the pivot point there, and I'm going to pick up that bow into my palm so that it looks like this. See that? And you see how my thumb is curved and my finger's curved, clutching that bow up into my palm. And then I go back down to the down position of the bow push-up. And then I go back up to the up position. Down position, up position. Using that pinky all the time as your fulcrum. And you should try not to let your pinky go really rigid. You know, I have a bad habit of doing that, and it's much better to keep it a little bit of a curve to it. So it's more like a shock. Okay, and those are bow push-ups. And that's what really sort of exhilarates the process of getting the dexterity with the right hand. It's those two exercises. Now, once you get the bow push-ups happening, you can do some landings. That's what they called it in Suzuki, coming in for a landing. So you hold your bow over your strings with the up position of the bow push-up, and then you slowly extend your fingers until your bow is sitting on the strings with the down position of the bow push-up. See that? Up she goes, down she goes. Nice and gentle. Up she goes, down she goes. Up she goes, down she goes. Bow coming in for a landing. And this is going to be what is your touch, what they call your touch, which is where your bow meets the strings and makes the sound. And some people have a beautiful touch. Jerry Holland had a beautiful touch. Some people have a real rough touch. Charlie Daniels has a terrible touch, for instance. Okay? And so you want to develop your touch to make it nice just as much as you need and no more. So those three exercises can really up the dexterity of that right hand. Is that going to help you, Shona? Good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now let's see somebody else trying that exercise. Down, stop, up, stop, down, stop, up, stop, up, stop. Let's see somebody else doing it. Who else is going to do it? Nancy,
Oh, I'm up.
you're up. Good. Try the next string. Really good. Try it again.
Sorry.
Okay, next one. Okay, that's really good, Nancy. Now let me talk about something just before you keep going, which is, again, a very common problem with adults, is to come in for a crash landing. Okay? Now my dad's teacher used to say, you got to put your bow on the string before you move it. Okay? Because if you do both at the same time, it sounds like this. See that? So what you want to do is you want to put the bow down there and then start your note nice and clean. And don't let it sit there for a second before you move it. Really good. Really good start to the note. Very good. Much improved. You hearing that?
I do hear it. So, yes.
That's
I'll
good.
work
That's
on
great.
that. Thanks.
Now, how does it feel? Are you getting a little bit of dexterity there?
I still grip-wise, I'm still can't decide between the two.
Okay.
But I'll try both, and I have a little trouble with it kind of bouncing a little bit on there when it hits.
Yeah.
And try to get that kind of smooth, like you said, smooth landing. What you said last week too helped a lot in terms of the plane that the bow is on.
Yes.
I have to focus on that because I can lose that really quickly.
Yeah.
But if I think about it, it helps a lot to make sure that I'm playing only one string.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of your bouncing, this thing where I'm telling you to put the bow on there and then start the note, that's going to help with that a lot too.
Okay.
Anybody else want to try that one exercise before we move on to the next exercise? Sherry going to do it? Okay, let's hear it. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Unmute. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Try that again.
Okay.
Try that again.
Yeah. Not too bad. Now, you hear that little bit of a wisp that's along with your sound.
Yeah.
Dig in a tiny bit more. Tiny little bit more weight. Try it again.
Okay.
Really good. You hearing the nice strength there?
Yeah.
That's good. That's really good. Excellent. Okay. So do you guys have a good idea how to do that exercise on your own now? Clean start, clean stop. You know, these exercises are where you can step back and work on these techniques on their own. So you want to really be a perfectionist about it and get the nice clean start, clean stop, everything involved in that. Okay? So that's stopping the bow. That's what I call that exercise, stopping the bow. Okay? The next one I want to work on is what they call kind of staccato bowing, or some people call it little circles, and some people call it dropping the bow. And it's where you're going to put the bow over the strings in front of our, sort of on any of the strings. It doesn't really matter. So put the bow over any of the strings, and we're going to make a little circle like this, hopefully just using your wrist, but you might end up using your arm a little bit when you first start doing it, and that's fine. But you're making little circles in front of your nose, and you're going to kind of encounter the string. See that? And you can do both ways, but let's start with little down bows, okay? Bill's doing a great job there. So we'll try. Well, let me show you how to do it. I'm just going to demonstrate it. So I'll start on the G. We'll do 4. Okay. Now the reason this is so important is because as fiddle players, we're always making little tiny notes, little tiny momentary eighth notes. And so this exercise is kind of basically practicing that idea. All right. Now I'm going to show you once more. I want you to really notice my right arm and how it's moving. That's a better angle there. Now you see how that's kind of a combo with my hand and a little bit of my forearm there. Tiny bit of my forearm that follows up. You guys want to try that a little bit? Just pick a string. It doesn't really matter which string. And I'll just lead it. You guys can try to follow me if you want. I'm going to start on G. Okay, I'm going to do 4 on each string. 1, 2, 3, go. I'll do it again. Let's do it again right away. Ready, go. Okay, that's great. Very, very good. Anybody want to give that a try for us so I can hear how it sounds?
I would like to try that.
Let's hear it.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
It's okay. Okay, Elaine first and then Katja.
Okay.
Okay, not too bad. Now, so you had a few little issues of touching other strings. And I think it was because I was watching you, and I think your elbow might be in the game a little bit more than you think. Okay?
Okay.
And also, if possible, let's see if we can give each of those little momentary notes a bit more length. Okay, let's try it again.
Okay.
Much better. You hear the difference?
Yeah.
Much cleaner, nice notes. Now, the touching other strings, the doorway, this is a great exercise to do in the doorway, all right? Because our eventual goal is to do them just with my hand, right? So at first it's going to be a bit bigger, but the doorway will kind of take half of that out. Now, Katja, why don't you give that a try? Now, that got better. Did you hear how it got a little better? Yeah. But this is a good angle of you. Watch that elbow. That elbow is doing a bit of it. So again, the doorway will take care of that. This is a great one to do in the doorway for you too. Okay? Really good though. Really good, strong little notes. How about you, Lena? I haven't heard much from you tonight. Why don't you give that a shot?
All right.
Really, really good. So you had a few little crunches. Did you hear those little on the E string especially? Just caused by coming in a little bit too hot. The E string is especially sensitive to that because it's so tight, right? So tight, and it has no winding. That's the tricky thing about the E as well. All the other strings have a flat piece of metal wound around it, and it makes it much more forgiving for the bow. Like it's that the bow can kind of just slide over it. Nice. The E is just a bare piece of metal. See that?
Oh.
And I think I was talking last time about the whistling that you get on an E string. You know, it's really annoying. And I might have talked about the Yehudi Menuhin's recording of the flute partita where his E strings keeps whistling and he starts cursing and turns off the recording and stops playing. So the whistling E string is a constant problem. And in fact, you can buy the non-whistling E string. Okay? And it's a wound E string. I tried it. It certainly didn't whistle or crunch at all, but it gave me half the volume of a regular E string. So I did not like it. Okay? So that's the problem with the E string. It's so thin, it's so tight, and it has no winding. And I swear to God, it's got a corner half the time. So yeah, when you do the E string, everything you do on the E, you have to take 30% off right away of weight and of pressure. Okay? Does that make sense? Other than that, really nice. Okay? Anybody else want to give it a try before we move on to something else? No? Good. Okay. Now last time, so those are some really good things to get that bow moving and get more familiar with the bow. Let's talk about the left hand. Okay? Now, who has tape on their fiddle? Cindy does. Katya does. Anybody else? No? Okay. Tape can be very, very useful on the fiddle when you first start off. I've taught a lot of beginners over the years, and there's only been a couple that I've been able to carry on without taping up their fiddle. Okay? Now, you got the green painter's tape. That's great. Well, here's what I suggest if you're going to tape up the neck of your fiddle. Next time I will tape up, this is my dad's fiddle here. It's a Frenchie, 1895 Frenchie. It's a lovely old fiddle. But next time I'll tape this one up, okay, so that you can see exactly how I do it. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you how to do it so that you can give it a try at home, and then I can help you next time. We can fine tune it and get it working properly, okay? Now the first thing is, when you get the tape, you got to cut it. You got to slice it so that it's narrow, okay? And I don't know what you want to do. Like, it depends on the person, but pretty narrow. Narrower is better. The wider the piece of tape, the more likely you are to be out of tune because the margin of error is bigger, all right? So I always say it's like, I don't know, like say 1/8 of an inch is really good wide for the pieces of tape. And you usually use 3 of them. The first one goes about 3/4 of an inch away from the nut. And that's where your first finger goes. The second tape goes about not quite as far as that. Say 5/8 of an inch away is the second tape. And that's another full step. Because what we're doing here is there's a full step between, here I'll hold her up real close. There's a full step between the nut and the 1. There's a note in the middle you got to leave room for. So there's a full step there. There's also a full step between the 2 and the 3. Or sorry, the 1 and the 2. So a full step between the nut and the first piece of tape, and a full step between the first piece of tape and the next piece of tape. Okay? And then the third finger piece of tape goes pretty well right next to the second. Hey, Shona, yours is done perf. Why don't you hold it up to the screen a little bit closer so people can see? Everybody see that? That's how you tape up the neck of your fiddle. And that's what gives you this, which they call first position. It's the first spacing of fingers that we use as fiddle players. All right? And that's where your 1 is about that far away from the nut. Your 2 is not quite as far as that away from the 1. And your 3 is right next to it. That's first position. with that position, they call it first position because with that spacing of fingers, I can get 3 keys on the fiddle using that same space of fingers. Check it out. So here is G. I'm going to use that first position, and I'm going to use it on the G string and the D string, and it's going to give me a G major scale. See that? Same spacing for each string, and you get a G major scale. And if I started on the D string, exactly the same spacing, I'll get a D scale. See that? And now I'm going to use exactly that same spacing on the A and the E, and it's going to give me an A scale. See that? Those are the 3 fiddle keys. And that's why they call them the fiddle keys. I mean, first of all, the instrument is tuned to those 3 notes. But also, with that first position, getting all of those 3 keys without moving the finger position at all is why they call them the fiddle keys. Okay? So that's first position. That's the first spacing we're going to use on the fiddle. A space between the nut and the 1, a space between the 1 and the 2, and the 3 is going to be kind of right next to the 2. Sometimes people have a little space. Sometimes people are right on top of each other. It really depends on your hand. Okay? So that being said, when you want to tape up your fiddle, you put the first piece of tape about there. You put the second piece of tape not quite as far away as that. And the third piece of tape right next to it. Does that make sense for everybody there? Okay. When you put the tape on your fiddle, first of all, don't use a tape that's going to leave a sticky residue, because some of the residues are like impossible to get off of the ebony on your fingerboard. So, because I had a student that used packing tape one time on his fiddle, and I don't know if he still might not have got that residue off of the goddamn neck of that fiddle. Like, it's just never-ending residue. So you don't want to use anything like that. The green painter's tape that Sherry had there is probably the best tape that you can use, yeah, to tape up your fiddle, because it's meant to not take varnish off, and it's meant to not leave a residue. Interesting fact about the fiddle, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but the neck is completely unvarnished. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah. There's not one bit of varnish on the neck of a fiddle. And the reason that is because as violinists, we're supposed to be moving up the neck of the fiddle and back down. See that? And so if there was varnish there, you know what would happen. You would constantly hang up on it, constantly stick on it, and so the neck of the violin is completely unfinished. Just sanded down and oiled, and that's it. Okay? So you don't need to worry about taking varnish off of your fiddle with the tape. You just got to worry about the residue. That's why that green tape is the best. All right? Also, you may want to make sure you use something that's thick enough that you actually feel it under your finger. Okay? Electrical tape is really good too. Electrical tape is what's most often used. And it's really good because it's thick and you can feel it. There's no mistaking it. You slide your finger up, you touch the edge of that tape, and you know you're on the tape. Okay? Because tape is not a visual. Lots of people think the tape is a visual, that you see the tape mark and you put your finger on it, but you can't really see anything. Look, this is my view. When I'm playing, this is my view. You see that? I can't see my second finger or my first finger, let alone the neck of the fiddle there. See that? It does no good to look down there. I do it by feel. So, yeah, I put my finger down and I feel the edge of that tape and then I'm on it. I know that I'm on it. Same as the second, same as the third. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, so that's how you tape up your fiddle. And I do recommend it. If you're just starting right out of the box, you should tape up your fiddle. It's going to take a lot of guesswork out of the equation. All right? Does that make sense? Is there any questions about first position or taping up the neck of your fiddle before I move on?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it okay to tape? I taped it to the tuner, basically. I didn't use the measurements because I found that too difficult.
Absolutely, you are totally right to do it that way. You
Yeah.
never the measurements. The thing is about the fiddle is that the problem with the fiddle is that it's a small wooden instrument that's totally unvarnished on the inside, so it changes every day. Where my finger comes down for a B one day might be slightly different than the next day, slightly. Okay, and so that's why your ear, just like you said, the tuner, is what tells you if your finger is in the right place, not where it is on the fiddle, because that can change. Now, with the tape marks, usually it doesn't change so much that you gotta actually move the tape, because even when you're using tape on your fiddle, there's a margin of error. You can put your finger on the very edge of it. You can put your finger on the middle of it. You can put your finger on the other edge of it, and you'll get 3 different notes.
I find it hard to really feel the tape, to be quite honest. I mean, for me, it's almost more visual because I see it's green and I know almost exactly where I have to put it.
I mean, that could be. That's in whatever way works is going to work,
Yeah.
But I will say that eventually it should be your ear, and that you should be able to do it with no tape and with your eyes closed. See what I mean? Because your ear will just say, "Oh no, come on, a little bit more," and then you'll be like, "Oh, good to go."
Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah, very good. Any other questions about the left hand, or the taping up, or the first position, the first thing we're going to use on the fiddle? Any other questions about that? No? Excellent. Very good. Now, let's talk about putting the fingers down. Okay, that's the next thing. So, I'm holding my fiddle. Now, we've already learned how to hold the fiddle perfectly, right? Just like that. So everybody hold your fiddle up there. Now, when you put, when you put your hand up to the end of the fingerboard, there's a few things you want to keep in mind. The first thing is what my dad's teacher used to say all the time. Where your thumb goes on the fiddle is like this. There's the nut, and here's your thumb. See that? That's where he used to say your thumb goes. Right next to the nut. So here's the nut, and here's my thumb. Okay? So if I was looking on the side, the nut would be visible. Now, the other thing about the thumb is that it goes right next to the nut, but it goes on the side. It does not go on the flat. See that? It goes on the side. That's really important because if you go on the flat, you make your hand deform and come down in a strange way like it doesn't normally come down. So it has to be on the side. Okay? Once you get that happening, you got your left hand up there. I'm going to turn around this way maybe. You got your left hand up there. And now, if your left arm does what it should do, which is what they used to say back in the Royal Conservatory days, it should be shaped like a comma. See that? All the way around to the strings. So you want to avoid this. Okay? Because that deforms, again, it changes where your fingers go, and your fingers end up coming down on the flat instead of on the fronts. Okay? So you want to avoid that wrist coming in. You want that smooth curve right around to your fingertips like that. Okay? Yep, that looks pretty good. Let me see people doing it. Looking good, Sherry. Looking good, Joanne. Really good. Cindy, can you move to your left a bit so I can see the profile of your hand? Yep, that's looking good. Really good. Elaine, you're good. Lena, looking great, man. Right on. Nancy. Now, Nancy, can you turn so I can see your profile a little bit more? Yeah, perfect. Let's see that. Okay, yeah, that's good. So you are a person that kind of wants to do this. All right? Yeah. Now, I am also one of those people. And so the way that I keep it at bay is to actively go like that. All right, and then it'll keep, yeah, that looks great. That's going to be much better for you there. Okay, that looks really good. Let's take a look at Shona. Looking good. Oh, cat. Jeez, sorry, we got a cat. His name is Tibbs. This is him. He's a bit of a terror. He likes computer keyboards and he likes to launch himself at my shoulder inexplicably. Anyway, okay, so let's see who else. Shona's looking good. Let's see about Bill. How you looking there, Bill? Looks really good. You got a nice looking left hand there. How about Sharon? Yep, looking great. And we've been down this road before, Sharon. That's good. How about you, Cindy? Let's see yours. Did I see yours already? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, that's good. So everybody's looking good. Everybody has the right kind of shape to their hand. Watch that, Joanne. You just did it a little bit. You just did that a little bit. So you want to keep that. And, you know, it's going to want to do that. For most people, the wrist wants to come in. Everybody thinks that you hold the fiddle like this, right? That's kind of the instinct. And so you got to battle that. You got to be nice and gentle. And that's the whole thing. Another thing about putting your left hand on the fiddle. You try not to grip it like this. Okay? When you grip the neck of the fiddle, then it kind of ratchets you up the fiddle like this as you move around the neck. Makes you really sharp. It adds tension to your left hand. It slows you down, and it can cause kind of pain in your left hand. So that left thumb is totally relaxed. In fact, I can play without my left thumb. I do it once in a while just to remind my hand that it doesn't have to grip the fiddle. Check this out. See that? Thumb totally hanging in the air. So you don't need to grip on the fiddle to play at all. You don't need it at all. So you try to keep that thumb relaxed and out of the game. If that thumb starts to come in the game, it's going to screw with you. It's going to slow you down and cause problems, okay? And make you sharp. That's the worst thing. So anyway, so yeah, do not grip the neck. So let's practice that a few times. You get the fiddle up there. You put the hand up there in a nice curved way, and then that means that your fingers should be right hanging over the strings, just like that. You see that? Nicely hanging right over the A string. So when I have everything in place, my fingers naturally hang and curl right over the A string. Is that the case for everybody there? Is that what's going on? You got that going on? That's great. That's really good. Okay, so those are the things that you're looking for. I'll go over them again. I'll just recap. So you put your left hand at the end of the fiddle, right next to the nut, on the side, not on the flat. And then you make sure your left arm is shaped like a comma, curving all the way around to your fingertips, over the strings. And then they should be just naturally over the A string, curled around to the tips. Okay? And if they're not, then you can ask me about it and I can investigate and see what's going on, why that's not happening. Does anybody not have that happening?
I have a
Shona?
question.
Yes.
So, when you're putting your hand up here, are you resting any particular part on any particular part? You're not resting it really at all, just kind of.
No. The only thing that happens to me, and it really depends on your hand, I've heard a lot of different people talk about different experiences with this, but for me, the fiddle sits against the side of my hand right here, okay? And one of the ways that I watch for that whole hand coming up the fiddle thing that I was talking about is that I'm very mindful of the skin on the side of my hand. And if it starts to pull back, I know I'm coming up like that.
Right.
And I try to make it nice and relaxed.
I have a very big thumb, so I can't.
It's okay.
I'm not sure where it's supposed to sit because I've got a big thumb.
Well, and you're going to have to figure it out yourself.
But
And
that's where it was sitting as well. It's around there. So
it's okay. That sounds like it's going to work, you know. And the thing is, what you're looking for. The problem with beginners is that you don't know what you're looking for, right? You hear me tell you.
I'm gripping and I don't want to. So I'm
okay, so that's what you want to look for. You want to look for that place where you can relax, and that's going to be the right place for you. Anybody else have questions about any of that before we move on? Anything? No? Excellent. Okay, so that's how you put the hand up there to put the fingers down. Now, putting your fingers down. So, first of all, if you look at your fingers a little bit, you can see that there's kind of a soft part and a hard part. Okay? And you want the hard part for coming down on the strings. The soft part is unstable. And like when I watch this. So when I put my third finger down on the string, nice D. Everybody hear that nice ringing D there? Okay, now I'm going to put it down on the flat fleshy part. You hear how much more inconsistent that is? You hear how it wavers a little bit compared to the other one? And that's because I got my finger down on the fleshy part. That means that what's holding down the string is actually about, I don't know, what is that, like a 1/4 inch wide. So the variance you can have there is a lot, and it can change your intonation and make you sound all wiggly. Okay? So that's why we use the front, the hard part of our finger, to come down on the string. All right? Another thing is, when you do bring your finger down onto the string, you don't always need to press down really hard. You don't need to at all. It reminds me of the term double stop, because everybody's heard of double stops, right? Everybody knows what a double stop is?
No, actually.
Okay. Double stops is when you're playing 2 strings.
Okay.
See that? Those are double stops. And there's a whole bunch of them, and they're a lot of fun. And that's all we can do as fiddle players. We can only play 2 strings at a time, maximum, you know? So the reason that they call them double stops, though, is from the old term that they used to use way back in the day for fingering the strings, because they didn't call it fingering the strings. They called it stopping the strings. And I love that term, because when your finger comes down on the string, it's stopping it from vibrating at that point. So if you picture a cellist goes way up on the fingerboard of the cello, and if you look at him, half the time his finger is not even making it all the way to the fingerboard. It's like hanging in midair, okay? Because that's the design of the strings. The fingerboard, half the time, doesn't even get a contact, all right? And so that's where you're stopping the string. Your finger's coming down against the string, and the sides of it are going around it, giving it a little hug, and stopping it from vibrating at that point. It's very gentle, and that's the thing about it. I'm not clamping my finger down. That's a guitar move for a lot of people that used to play guitar. With guitar, you clamp the string behind the fret, right? Clamp her down, and the string does the intonation, the fret does the intonation for you. With fiddle, we don't clamp, we poke. Okay, we gently poke that string with just enough pressure to get it in tune. It's usually not full pressure. Watch this. Here's my D. D is my favorite note. I didn't even know that until I was on tour with the Magic of Ireland, and the piper, Brian Bigley, said, I pulled out my fiddle like I did every night, started getting warmed up, and he said, did you know that the first note you always play when you get that thing out of the box is a D? Every night, every time you play a D every time. And then I realized, yes, I do. D is my favorite note. So anyway, here's my D. And that's bang on in tune. Do you hear that? Everybody got your tuner on. You can see that I'm not lying. Okay. Now, I have about 75 or 80% pressure down on that note with my left finger. Okay. If I push my finger down all the way, listen to what happens. Here it is in tune. You hear the difference there? Finger pressure can sharpen you half a semitone, which, when you're a little bit flat trying to play Lord Gordon's, is a lifesaver. Okay, do you see what I mean by that? It's a quick and easy fix. It's instantaneous when it comes to sharpening your note up to in tune, is bringing in finger pressure. So when you're out of tune, your first line of defense is the finger pressure, and it makes an instantaneous change to the note. Okay, so right now you guys are beginners, so you're not there yet. So what you want to do is when you put your finger down, you want to try not to squish it down all the way. Try to see how much pressure you need for each note to get it in the ballpark. Okay, now I'm going to tell you for me what I have going on. So to give you a little bit of a reference, it's going to be different for everybody. Some people have great big giant wide fingers. Some people have really tiny pointy little digits that are very hard. Jerry Holland used to say he had great big giant sausage fingers, and he used to say that it was really hard to even put his finger on one string without it being on another. So you got to mess with those things with your own hand and figure out how much you need to push down for your hand. Okay, but I'll show you mine. So here we got A, B. So that's a B, and it's been in tune. And I would say, it's a lot of finger pressure for the first finger. It's like, for me, it's like 85% finger pressure. If I put it all down, that's how much I sharpen. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back. There's my B, 85% pressure. Here's my C. Less pressure. C is actually barely a touch for my hand. For my finger, I'm barely touching the string to get it in tune. And if I did press down, that's like almost a D. Okay? So here's the C. A C sharp, I should say. And it's about 70 or 75% pressure. And then here's my D, which is even less. I would say it's about 70 for my fingers. So investigate that on your own. Leave your tuner on, glance at it once in a while when you're doing these fingering exercises to keep you kind of honest as possible. You're not going to play in tune at first. You're going to be kind of all over the place. So all you want to do is, I always say, playing in tune is like playing darts. When you first start trying to play darts, you're lucky to get the dart on the same wall as the dartboard. But as you work at it, you get closer and closer to the mark and your batting average goes up. Okay? And that's our only hope for intonation. There's nobody in the world that could do it any different than that. Okay? So when you're first starting off, the ballpark is good enough. It's fine. Okay? And we're just going to refine. We're going to get it closer and closer to the mark all the time. But for now, just get her in the ballpark is plenty. Now, let's try putting a few fingers down, shall we? Let's start off with kind of the fundamental scale of the fiddle, which is A major. I'm going to demonstrate it at first, and then you guys are going to give it a try. So it starts on the open A, and I'm going to use first position of my fingers, which looks like this again, just to review. And I'm going to use that first position on both the A and the E string to play an A major scale. Here we go. That's an A major scale. Are you hearing how that works? Okay, now why don't you guys give that a try for a minute, okay? Just mess around, see if you can try playing an A major scale. Open A, 1, 2, 3, open E, 1, 2, 3, and then you start taking them off, okay? So mess around with that for a minute, and then I'm going to pick on somebody. Okay. Messing around time over. Who wants to give it a try for me? Anyone?
I'll give it a whirl.
All right, Sherry, let's hear it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Now, try it one more time and watch that your hand doesn't move up when you move over to the E string.
Okay. Is that the ballpark you're aiming for?
That was good. That was definitely good. You're getting the right idea. Very good. Who else wants to do it? Joanne, let's hear it.
I'm pushing the wrong spot. Sorry.
It's all right. Really good. You getting the idea?
Yeah, I didn't realize the whole pressure thing. I think that's the part I've been missing.
Nobody ever realizes that. It's always a surprise.
I always thought you had to press hard on the strings.
Yeah, it's kind of a equilibrium, you know? You
Yeah.
do have to press a little bit, but if you do too much, you're sharp. So you got to kind of, and the thing is that it's less work, eh? Pressing down not as much is a lot less work. It makes your hand a lot quicker and more nimble.
Right.
Okay. Who else going to give it to me? How about you, Cindy?
I just broke my G string.
Oh no! Are you serious?
I kept my old strings, but yeah. So now I got to string that. So
Oh, okay. Well, listen.
yeah,
Maybe
not
you and
having
I
a fun
could.
night.
Maybe you and I could have like a Zoom session at some point soon, and I can help you get
Okay.
those strings on and work it out. You know, because I've
Yeah.
done it a million times for people, and we can do that. So get in touch with me, and we'll find 15 minutes at some point, and we'll do that
Okay.
over Zoom.
All right,
Okay.
I'm gonna go, guys. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks very much, Cindy. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye now.
Who else gonna give it a try for us? Lena, you look ready. All right, let's hear it.
All right.
Really good. That sounds great, and I know you've been working on it. Your sound is really good, and the intonation was quite good there. Okay, and the shape of your hand looks great. So keep doing that, and you've got a few more scales you can practice too. Okay, really good.
Right.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Anybody else want to try it? Bill, right on, man. Let's hear it. I think you're already unmuted. I think you're good to go.
Who's that?
That's you, Bill. You want to give it a try?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you're already off to a pretty good start there, Bill. But I'm going to give you a piece of advice, and this is going to be good for everybody else as well. Don't kind of go fast through your scales. It's an instinct. For some reason, when people do scales, they think the important thing is to get up to the top and back down to the bottom, but it's really not. Spend lots of time with each note, all right? Give yourself a chance to tune it. If it's not in tune, keep playing it until it is in tune. And then move on to the next note, okay, Bill? Because that was pretty good, but a few of them, if you had played it a little longer, you would have brought it right into tune. You know what I mean? Okay, so give each note of the scale when you're practicing, each note of the scale a full bow, a nice big long bow. Okay, anybody else want to try it before we're done?
I'll give it a try.
All right, let's hear it. Really good, Elaine, and I know we've been working away at that, and you're getting much stronger with that. That was nicely in tune, and it sounded great. Now, okay, so what I want you guys to do this week, you got a few things to do this week. First of all, you're going to keep practicing holding the bow. Now you have a few things to do with the bow. You can do the spider crawl, do the bow push-ups, okay? Then you're going to do your long bows, down and then up. And you're going for perfection with this, all right? So it's no good to just do it and say, oh, I'm done it. You want to make it sound as good as possible. No pops, no bounces, no squeaks, no touching other strings, no crunches, no chokey, all right? So that's your eventual goal with the right from one end to the other, down and then up on each string. And when you get to the E, go the other way too, over to the G. Once you finish that, you're going to try a few of those stopping the bow. Down, stop, up, stop, down, stop, up, stop. You're going to do a few of those, okay? Once you get that happening and it starts to sound good, you're going to do a few of the on each of the strings. Just doesn't matter which ones. You'll feel they're all different. I think I was talking about that before. G and D are very loose. A feels normal. E feels very tight. So you want to adjust your touch for each one, get that working good. And then you're going to do your scales. So first of all, whoever needs to tape up your violin, don't hesitate to get in touch if you need help taping up that violin, okay? Because I can find time, we do a little Zoom meeting, get you working, okay? But once you tape up your violin, I want you to do that scale pattern in first position, this here, starting on the G string, starting on the D string, and starting on the A string. And I've played them already. I've demonstrated. I'm going to do it again, though. I'm going to play those 3 scales for you so that you can play along with them at home. I'm going to start on the A. Or tune my fiddle. Okay, here we go. A major first. I better mute everybody, because you don't want to practice along to me with somebody else. Okay, here we go. A major. D major. And then G. Whoops, I did it in 2 octaves. Let me do it in 1 octave. Okay, and there are the three 2-octave, or sorry, there are the three 1-octave scales that we can get in first position on the fiddle. And that's how we're going to start off, all right? Give yourself plenty of time with these guys. Spend lots of time on each note. Try, because what we're doing here is we're training your ear to hear what all these notes on your fiddle are supposed to sound like when they're in tune. So we're starting with those 3 keys to keep it simple. The other thing is, next time, after you've tried it for a week and you start messing around trying to get somewhere, I'll show you things that you can do while you're playing the scale to keep yourself relatively in tune, especially if you're a person that has trouble using a tuner to practice, because not everybody can use a tuner to practice. It's too distracting. And so there's old-fashioned ways that we can keep you in tune and keep you honest when you're practicing at home. And it's good because it helps you discover more about your fiddle. Okay? So that's what you're going to practice this week. Next week we're going to talk about those things, expand on the scales a little bit, and we're going to see if we can start in on a little tune. Does that sound like a good plan? That's good. Any questions at all before we sign off? Anything?
Please?
Yep.
Okay. So I have 2 bows.
Yep.
So what appears to have happened is either this is stripped, but I think it's the little nut.
That's called an
on the
eyelet.
frog.
That's called an eyelet, and they always
The
strip.
eyelet is stripped. Is there a quick home remedy for that?
Do not do
Plumber's
it.
tape or something?
No.
Nope.
No, don't do anything like that, because you could strip your tightening screw, which is kind of a pain. So it's a really quick fix for a luthier. It's like $25 to put a new eyelet on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were you.
And you said Halifax Sound Center?
Halifax Folklore Center.
Folklore Center.
Yeah, that's where we always bought our stuff whenever we got up to Halifax. It's a great spot, and they really know what they're doing there.
Okay.
I haven't been there in a long, long time now, mind you. But back in the 80s, it was the place to go.
Okay.
And
Yes.
do you know where in like Oakville, Burlington, Hamilton area, is there a place to take your fiddle to get tuned up or whatever?
You know, I don't know of any offhand. Because you're so close to the city, you might as well just go to Heinel, because they'll do the best job ever. Like the guy at Heinel who does the repairs is an amazing luthier who's got an international reputation, and the guy that does the bows is like my favorite. He studied in England for 7 years. This guy. Did you know that it takes the same amount of time to learn how to make bows as it does to learn how to make fiddles? Yeah.
Wow.
But real luthiers never touch a bow, and real bow makers never touch a fiddle. They're 2 completely different things, but they take the same amount of time to learn how to do. It's amazing to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions at all before we sign off? Yes.
This is from the orchestra.
Okay.
Playing the thing you said you practice at 70, and we'll play it at 85. It sounds. I've got a metronome. It sounds like 70 is really slow.
Yeah, it is. I mean, 70 is slow. But you're going to take advantage of that, Bill. You're going to play that slow tempo, and you're going to use as much bow as you can. And then when it starts to get up to 85, you're going to still be able to use a good bit of bow to get a good bit of sound out. All right? So use that slow to your advantage to develop that.
At 85 still seems slow.
It's what they call in Ireland the stately pace. Let me show you. I kind of like it myself. Where's my tunable? There it is. It's kind of it's a reduced tempo for sure, but it's still got a nice kind of feel. So here's 85. See that? That's not exactly slow. I wouldn't call that slow. See what I mean? Here's a jig. See that? That's 85. So it's not really, really slow, but it's not fast. 75.
You're playing it. It sounds like you're playing it fast, but you're not. You don't need the beat to be so fast.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of the idea. Now, here's 75. You getting the idea?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll talk about it more at the orchestra practice.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And one more person, Nancy.
Can we learn how to play that jig sometime?
We will do that. That's going to be the first one we learn. Now, what was your question, Nancy?
Just a quick question about rosin.
Yep.
Because it's all new, and so could I have over rosin this bow if I saw a little bit of rosin on the strings after I started playing? No.
Check out my. I mean, I haven't been playing that much, but still, check out my fiddle. You can see there's lots of rosin on there. Yeah,
All right.
and you need a bit of that residue on there. Like that's the whole idea. That there's the rosin on the bow, rosin on the string, and so between the two of them, that's where how it makes the slip grip cycle.
And would I put rosin on like after tonight? And if I take it out tomorrow, would I rosin it again tomorrow? Or?
No, I usually it depends on how much you play. I usually rosin my bow, say every 3 or 4 times that I'm playing. Is usually depend. So if it's a rough night where I'm really like 3-hour dance, then I might be rosining in the middle of that.
And for the amount that I'm playing, which is little bits here and there.
Yeah.
It's probably a longer time between.
Oh, absolutely. And the problem is that if you use too much rosin, it's really a pain in the ass because it grips, it grabs on you. And if as you use the rosin that's on the bow, if you put new stuff on, the old stuff gets worked out to the edges. And then it gets dried out and crystalline, which you do not want. It catches the strings in a weird way. So with rosin, a little dab will do you. Less is more.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you do over rosin and you have that residue on your strings, because too much rosin on your strings is also a problem.
Okay.
So if you find that there's lots of rosin, but you're still having slippery problems, that's too much.
Okay.
Because when you have too much rosin residue on your strings, you know when the road is icy and they salt it, and for the first little while there's that layer of slush that's actually even worse than the ice underneath of it. That's what happens with rosin with the residue, with the excess residue.
Okay, and then the last little question is, would you keep it in the case? Does rosin dry out?
Yes. Oh yeah. I think I showed you guys last week. This is the kind of rosin that I use. Yeah. It's perfect for my approach of playing. I play lots of Scottish and I play lots of Irish where I'm so it's kind of really down the middle for me. That's why I like it. But I mostly like it because of the awesome plastic little container and keeps it from drying out. And I know somebody that doesn't use this type of rosin but bought some just for the case. Okay, so you do have to keep it wrapped, and if it dries out, it's no good. It's worse than no rosin.
Tell if it's dried out because I inherited this from someone else. It was wrapped, but
it's just how it sounds to you. If you can't get rid of scratchy, squealy, then your rosin is dried out. Yeah.
And I bought one that looks like this.
Oh yeah.
Inexpensive. It was like $3.50. It was like a piece of glass, you know. I had the feeling that nothing would go on the bow. Yeah. So then I read that you have to sort of scrape it with some hard coin or something like this.
Yeah.
Just discovered it, and it's really working.
Yeah. Now the other thing is that is a cheap rosin, and the cheaper it is, the harder it is to work in. So my rosin, I didn't have to do anything like that. I bought it new because I dropped mine at the beginning of the quarantine, and I had no rosin for 6 months. And I recently bought some, and you can see what it looks like here. I didn't do any of that stuff to it, but it is coming off. You can see where it's starting. To see that where it's starting to wear in a little bit? Yeah. And so, but I'm a person that does not like a huge amount of rosin, so it's a real individual thing.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, so that's going to be enough for you. I hope that keeps you busy this week, and we'll get on with it next week. All right? Thanks a lot,
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
Nighty
Thank
night.
you. Bye. Good night.